Welcome. Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, can you hear me? I can hear myself quite loud. Yeah, that's a test. Anyway, welcome. Thank you so much for being here to this symposium, Human-Centered AI Symposium. It was organized by the College of Humanities, by the EPFL AI Center, by the EPFL alumni, and by the GT. And so we are very happy to welcome all of you, to welcome our 5 speakers you will hear pretty soon. Just to tell you a few words about the organization, so you will first have the opportunity to meet, to listen to these presentations of our 5 speakers. We chose the best, so you're lucky tonight. It's not always the case, but tonight they're the best. And so then you will have a roundtable. We will make it short because we know that you will have thousands of questions to ask them. So you will very quickly have the opportunity to ask them questions. So do not hesitate to take notes when they do their presentations, because you won't ask questions during their presentations, but at the third part of this event. So thank you again, and I'm happy to give now to ask Philippe Cudret-Moreau to come on stage just for the welcome word. He's professor and director of Exascale Infolab at UNIFR, and he's also an EPFL alumnus.
Thank you so much, Anne-Laure. Good evening, bonsoir à tout le monde. It's such a pleasure to see you all. Yes, I was here for quite many years. I'm an alumnus. I did my bachelor, part of my master, my PhD here, so it's always good to be back, you know. So it's really a pleasure to organize these events tonight. The idea is really to you know, AI is shaping so much our society today, right? And tomorrow it's going to be even more important. I cannot highlight enough, right, the changes that all those AI will bring. And I think we are a bit naive in Switzerland, in Europe, and we really need to discuss the place of AI in our society, in our economy, right? So we are here for this tonight. I would like to give you a bit of a sneak preview. We'll have 5 distinguished guests tonight. Martin Rajman from the EPFL AI Center. He will present Apertus. You all know Apertus. We'll have Denis Lalanne, my colleague from the University of Fribourg, who has this center called Human-IST, and who is doing actually human-centered HCI and AI. We will have Desiree Popelka from the Global Health Institute of EPFL, Dorina Thanou with an exciting talk on AI and health from the EPFL AI Center, and last but not least, Vinitra Swamy from Scholé AI, who will tell us a bit about her startup and her research. So this is going to be exciting. Bear with us. After this, as already Anne-Laure suggested, we'll have a roundtable. So feel free to note down all your questions for this roundtable. The roundtable will be hosted by Anne-Laure, who will manage all of this. I would like to thank everyone who organized and co-organized this event, EPFL AI Center, the Groupement des ingénieurs en technologie de l'information, le GT, the College of Humanities, and the EPFL alumni. Thanks to Melissa Anchisi, Anne-Laure Ganac, Virginie Martin, Gabriel Papot, and last but not least, Emmanuel Yangas for these very nice collaborations. You know, it's not always the case that we can have so many centers collaborating on one event. And without further ado, I will now give the floor to the speakers. Thanks a lot, and see you after the speakers, after the roundtable. We will have an apéro. I hope to talk to many of you then. Have fun. See you later.
Thank you. So I'm not the speaker, but I'm inviting the speaker, and I'm taking my phone back. No, anyway. So please welcome on stage Dr. Vinitra Swamy for Scholé AI. She's a co-founder of Scholé AI. She's also a very recent doctoral graduate. She was actually in the doctoral on Monday, so it's her week being here in Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for listening to me talk about Scholé. So you might be wondering, what is this word? Why is it on your screen? It's actually an ancient Greek word. It means leisurely learning, like the learning that you used to do in a relaxed way with friends for fun, what learning can be. And that's what we're trying to build here. It says AI native learning for the future of work. We're very happy to be supported by a large number of folks. But let me paint the landscape for you. Today, Microsoft is currently using AI to write 30% of their code. And closer to home, Migros is now using AI in 2,000 stores for 11% less inventory delays. And these are 2 case studies from just 2 months ago. Every company is using AI and teaching their employees how to use AI and getting crazy productivity guarantees and outcomes. So there's no doubt that AI is changing the work and therefore the needs of the workforce. A recent study from the World Economic Forum said that 70% of skills for jobs are going to change by 2030, and a large part of this is driven by AI. And so there's no doubt that we also need training. Adult learning is a bit of a forgotten sector in this world of learning. You might know the Coursera's, the edX's, degreed online learning, but once you finish university and you're off onto the workforce, what you're doing is that you're learning in the flow of work and learning on the job, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, all the way back in 2015, this was the picture on way the other side of the ocean. This is UC Berkeley, and this is the Foundations of Data Science class. Data 8. And there was a phenomenon happening at a bunch of these college campuses at this time. Right now, AI is the popular word. Before it was machine learning, and before that it was data science. And this was one of the first undergraduate data science classes offered by a university. And what was crazy about this class was, 1, the number of students taking it when it didn't count for any requirements. But 2, 60 majors were represented, 50-50 gender ratio. It grew from 100 students to 1,700 students in the span of less than 2 years. And that was only in person. And at some point, I was a student in that class, and later I became Berkeley's first summer lecturer for Data 8. And so we saw this kind of phenomenon of how computing education and data science education can actually be put into the hands of people who are thinking about different fields, economics or art or history, and see the relationship that computing can have for them. And AI is no different. And what worked here? What made this actually work? Well, the core insight is that diverse students have very diverse data science needs. What is interesting for one is not always the same thing that is interesting for another. And most especially, different examples talk to different students in different ways. What do I mean by that? Well, if I have, let's say, an example that's about estimate the age of the universe using nearby stars in my data science class, then the astronomy student in the class is really going to get it. And like that, that's why Data 8 worked. It was a lot of real-world data, real-world examples, and it really clicked for certain students in the class. And that is a bit the core principle behind what we're building at Scholé. So you're an educator. You have the perfect example of all time. You love this example, you treasure it, you think it's the best way to explain this topic. But if you give this example to all of your students, what you see is that it doesn't work perfectly for anyone. But if you are individually tailoring the right example for every single person, or Data 8 style, you have a variety of different examples that might speak to different people at different times, this takes a ton of human effort. It's really complicated. And so the answer comes from this. How many of you have heard of Bloom's 2 sigma problem? Okay, some people, a few. Okay, I'll explain it to you. This is one of the core principles of learning science. But what we have on the y-axis is learning outcomes. And what we have on the x-axis is achievement scores. So when you have, for example, a conventional teaching style, which is what this represents, one instructor, let's say, for 30 people or something like this, you get a spread of learning outcomes, right? That achievement scores are across the board. It really works for some people, it doesn't work for some people. And the promise, especially in this area, of one-on-one tutoring is this curve. That when everyone has a tutor that helps them individually, the learning outcomes have been proven to increase. But we know that this is not possible for a lecture room the size of Rolex. So what can we do here? Well, our thesis is that actually it's not an instructor, it's an instructor plus AI working together to create these tailored examples that actually make sense for people in actionable driven ways that can actually transform the future of what learning can look like, especially beyond a classroom. And so our goal with Scholé is basically to enable this teacher to give these personalized examples to a lot of different students, but more than the teacher, if you think about it from an enterprise perspective. Let's say that this person is actually the head of HR, and HR has been tasked by the CEO to say, hey, your entire workforce needs to learn AI, because that's the current situation. Instead of finding one training that works not well for everyone, how about finding one training that works well for everyone? That's the promise. So we are teaching AI and data science in the context of your job, and the premise is basically our first use case is using AI to actually teach about AI. And the way that we do this is that we're grounded in real-world materials. Some from your very, very favorite lectures that even happen here at Rolex, the ML class, ADA, some from Berkeley, from Harvard, from the University of Washington, with lecture videos, problems, quizzes, readings, as well as whatever materials the company has on these topics. We feed these all into a knowledge graph, and from this knowledge graph of relationships, we extract just the right material that makes a custom curriculum, and then adapt it into the context of something relevant to you using large multimodal models and large language models. So, the team. You've heard me talking for a while. I'm Vinny, or Vinitra. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Scholé. About 4 months ago, Paula and I graduated from the Machine Learning for Education lab here at EPFL, affiliated with both the EPFL Learn and AI centers, which we're super excited to be parts of, as the first 2 graduates of this new lab. And much to our wonderful professor Tanya's disappointment, we didn't go on to be professors, but we did the startup instead. So I come from the Bay Area originally. My background was in scaling Berkeley's data science program, after which I spent a few years at Microsoft AI. And Paula will never brag about herself, but she had one of the most impactful PhDs I've ever seen. In the last 4.5 years, she deployed more than 12 AI tools for the vocational education systems out here in Switzerland that have reached more than 200,000 learners. And so together, we're really the right people to work on this specific problem. But we come back with a large set of wonderful people who are working on this as well. The Machine Learning for Education lab, Tanya Kaiser, the support from Berkeley, as well as our research students and others as well. But who are our first users? Well, Decathlon, Swisscom, and Harvard. And what's got these guys concretely so excited? Well, it's because we're doing, again, AI literacy hyper-personalized to each employee, not learners, role, domain, tasks, and tools. So when they come into the platform, they say, hey, this is what I do on a daily basis. This is my job. These are the tools I use. These are the tasks I use. This is my experience level. And then we continually adapt for them. And we're underpinned by several learning science principles. One of them is self-regulated learning, which is basically giving you control back of your own learning journey. How many of you have sat in a training that is from a company that is super boring and you really wish you could skip? Yeah, I see a lot of hands. So it's exactly this. If you're going to do upskilling, you should have control over where your journey takes you. Knowledge tracing is a way to estimate learners' skill levels and have that divine what the next difficulty of the next chunk of content, the next question, et cetera, should be, to put you in this thing called the zone of proximal development. It's like the area of learning where it's not too hard or too easy, where you're optimally frustrated so you can have the best learning outcomes. And we know that the solution also has to be both adaptive and multimodal. It should have videos, it should have audios. You should be able to do it on your morning commute. You should be able to do it on your phone. And so what sets us apart? Well, one, content relevant to your job. So of the 50 things you could learn about AI, we think that maybe these 3 things would be extra relevant to you because of who you are. And from there, we give the ownership and ability of HR or a manager to be able to assign this to a specific learner. Or for someone on your team to be like, hey, I made this really cool new curriculum. I want you to try it out. And we have curriculum that adapts to you. So we estimate your skill level. We have a chunk of content. Maybe this is text, maybe this is video, maybe this is problem. And these are not like the 1-hour lecture videos. They're like the 2 minutes of the lecture video picked at exactly the right time to fit into the lesson. then based on how you respond, we have kind of a question or a test or a practical exercise, and that governs the next chunks generation. So in comparison to what you know, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, they basically are these kind of one-size-fits-all models in the sense that there are videos, there are problems, it doesn't change based on who you are. On the other side, there are a lot of new solutions, right? ChatGPT, Gemini's LearnLM, a lot of other folks, but these also have several problems. They're super personalized to you. You can ask for anything that you would like, but a lot of people don't even know what they would want to learn. There's no multi-session support. There's no learner model that is actually underlying the development of the curriculum, and there's no gaining of skills or insight for HR or manager. Actually, they're missing a lot, but we've told them. And on the other side, there's the most famous edtech solutions in AI. For example, Duolingo or Khan Academy. They do a great job with something called intelligent tutoring systems. And these do actually change the next question's difficulty based on the previous questions. But the problem with Duolingo is basically this. Like, let's say you're going to Korea on a business trip in 2 weeks. So you can't go to Duolingo and say, hey, I'm learning Korean for 2 weeks because I'm going to go on this business trip. Because what you would want to learn is, hey, I want to learn the signs on the metro. I want to learn how to order in a restaurant. I want to get from 0 to 1. But what it starts you with still are the Hangul character symbols, where you're not going to get anywhere with that in 2 weeks to get the practical knowledge that you want to know. So this kind of contextualized learning is what we're trying to enable. And what we believe is that different folks should have totally different experiences on our platform. That there should be a vision that the right learning that works for you might be totally different than the right learning that works for you, and the right learning that, for example, works for NLAR. And we believe that everyone should get the learning that they want to and need to have, and that we can do it today because the technology is finally here. After Scholé's first pilots with Decathlon, which were just a few months ago, 100% of learners reported a new adoption of AI that saved them more than 3 hours a week, which was a very shocking and positive result. And as of last week's, we have partnered with Harvard University for their generative AI intensive, which is rolling out to thousands of senior executives around the world. On this very cool course, kind of first of its kind, AI tutoring, where we do practical exercises for folks in the evening that are super hyper relevant to their jobs as they learn from esteemed faculty in the mornings. And more than anything, maybe you don't know about this, but you've probably heard of the EU AI Act. Article 4 within it is a personalized AI literacy mandate. So if you or anyone you know has a company, they probably have to ascribe to this because it's about anyone who's using AI in the EU, either deploying a solution with it or using it internally. They have to do a personalized AI literacy training for all of their employees. Otherwise, they have to face some pretty massive fines. And as of a month ago, Scholé has now become an approved solution under this act as well. But the vision is this. We believe that there can be a personalized teacher that actually learns the more it teaches. That the more it teaches you or you or you, we get better at generalizing to the next person that comes in. That as you learn a new tool, as opposed to what you've learned before, you don't have to start from scratch each time. We can make analogies like, hey, you learned this AI feature on Excel, but now you're learning this AI feature on Tableau. That's actually pretty similar, and this is the only difference. We can even say, hey, remember that training you did 3 months ago? This part that you're struggling with now, this is your perfect chance to use it. Here's your 2-minute refresher. Here's your company's internal tool. Go. And all of these things are very much in reach. But I would love to end with this. How many of you know this guy? Yeah, great. The best way to think about what we're building is Clippy, but Clippy for everything. Horizontal Clippy. So Clippy that accompanies you to make you more productive because it actually understands how you learn, what you know, what you want to learn, your motivations, essentially your learning coach on your laptop. So let's together build a future of lifelong learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinitra Swamy. So I'm sure you have lots of questions for Vinitra. Please write them down on your note, take notes, and then you will have the possibility to ask the questions at the third time of this event. Now welcome here Dr. Dorina Thanou. She's working at EPFL AI Center, and she's leading actually the development of the intelligent systems for medicine and health research pillar at the EPFL AI Center. She will explain this much better than I. Go.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thanks a lot to the organizers for organizing this interesting event. I'm also an EPFL alumni, apart from being a current member of EPFL. I'm very excited to talk today about NIPO, that is a National AI Initiative for Precision Oncology, and that's basically how we envision transforming cancer care with human-centered AI. And NIPO, we see it as the implementation or the tool that we will have in Switzerland in order to push these directions. It's more than just a technology. It's basically, I would define it as building a system, or even better, an ecosystem where we have data, we have patients, we have clinicians, we have engineers in the loop in order to lead the developments of such a framework. So let me give a bit of background of what we believe allows us to envision such a challenging vision. Basically, nowadays, for the first time, precision oncology has been can benefit from a huge amount of data. Nowadays, for every patient, we have a huge amount of atlas coming from technologies that are able to capture biological systems at different scales. Think of next generation sequencing. We are able to go at a cell, we are able to detect different genes, expression of different proteins, that nowadays we can even go at a spatial level. Some of you might have heard about spatial biology, spatial transcriptomics, spatial proteomics. These are probably words that you might have encountered, and it's basically the technologies that in the future will be implemented in hospitals in order to be able to get more in-depth information of the tumor itself. That, of course, it's at a tumor tissue level, meaning that when we go to a hospital and we take a biopsy, we see the cells and we try to understand the information inside of cells. But of course, we have other more traditional technologies, right? Radiology, that is basically the main technology whenever someone is diagnosed or there is suspicious of cancer, where you have PET, CT technologies in order to be able to see the evolution of the lesion in different parts of the bodies. At the blood level test, we have advancements in terms of liquid biopsies, for example, that are very exciting tools, non-invasive tools. We don't need to go at the tissue level, but through blood samples, we are able to detect markers that allow us to see the evolution of the tumor over time. So all these things together enables us to have a huge amount of data that can allow us to understand better biology and understand better disease. And of course, thanks to these technologies, nowadays we have come up with more advanced molecular diagnostics, and we think if we do a very small historical overview, these diagnostics help us to move from the more traditional way of treatment, such as chemotherapy, that was or is applied to everyone without any specific personalization, to therapeutics or treatments that are more tuned to each patient and the characteristics of the patient. And I will not bother you with a lot of details, but for example, back in 1970, we started, thanks to the immunohistochemistry, that it's a way of subtyping tumors, we're able to identify specific markers that allow us to move to treatments that are more targeted. Together with NGS sequencing, we are able to identify mutations and then target these mutations. And nowadays, in the recent few years, we have immunotherapy, that is a novel way of fighting cancer, that is basically trying to boost the immune system in order to find the cancer itself. So in Europe, immunotherapy, it basically won also the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago, and that's one of the treatments that is currently the hope or the premise of precision oncology nowadays. So we have all these different treatments. We're advancing in terms of treatments, but still in terms of personalization, we are not there yet. And that's because tumor biology is very, very complex. It's something that really depends on the patients, on the characteristics of the patients, and the type of the tumor. And as a matter of fact, if we check a bit the statistics and if, in terms of therapies that have been developed, even in terms of immunotherapy, it has been successful, yes, we're very happy about it, but it has been successful only for specific type of tumors. It's quite important for melanoma, and if we just want to see a bit of numbers, we see there that there are already 27 biomarkers, meaning these are indicators that show us that immunotherapy will work, and that for skin cancer, that number is quite high, same for lung. But if we go to other type of cancers, these numbers are quite small, which means that these therapies, these treatments are efficient, but for specific type of cancers. And even worse, their efficiency will depend on how early we can diagnose the patient. If we take the example of a breast cancer, the survival rate is quite high. It's almost 100% if we diagnose a patient early on at stage 1, but it drops to 30% when we diagnose a patient at stage 4. And of course, on the other hand, in terms of cost, the trend is exactly the opposite, right? So if we are able to diagnose early, the cost will be quite low, but if we diagnose and treat the patient later on the stage of the disease, that cost will be quite high, would basically double. And on the top of that, we have still side effects. So depending on, every patient is responding in a different way with different side effects that make this whole development of treatment still a very challenging and active area of research. So, and if we want to talk about numbers, I'm pretty sure that these numbers might sound a bit disappointing to you because unfortunately most of us or in our very close circle will probably had someone that was diagnosed with cancer. As a matter of fact, if we focus only on Switzerland, we have about 70,000 deaths per year. And we have almost 40,000 new cases of cancer every year. So these numbers are huge. It means that we are developing in terms of treatments, but we can still do much better. And that's, if we focus in terms of, if we see a bit numbers in terms of the cost of these treatments, we will see that for therapies like immunotherapies, yes, they are very successful, but they cost a lot. So an average cost of, for a patient per year, it's around 200,000 for immunotherapy, and for more advanced immune type of immunotherapies like the CAR-T therapy, that can be even higher. But still, we are lucky enough because we are in a country where there is a lot of investment in health, and if we check a bit the statistics in terms of a cost per patient in Switzerland, we are one of the leading in Europe. So there is a lot of money spent in terms of cancer patients in Switzerland in comparison to European countries. So how can we improve these numbers? Can we do something better than that? And we definitely believe that the answer to that is trying to explore this richness that is coming from these different technologies in terms of data, in terms of patients in different hospitals across the whole country. So yes, data is key, but we need to overcome challenges that are coming from the complexity of this data. Of course, we don't need to motivate too much the fact that cancer, it's a very complex biological process. It's very patient-specific. You have genes, you have cells, each of the behavior, the evolution of the cells, et cetera, of their time. It's something that depends on the type of tumor, but also depends a lot also on the type of people. And on the more practical aspects, if we take a common case of a patient going to a hospital and being diagnosed with cancer, basically, unfortunately, we have a very fragmented ecosystem. For the same patient, you might have data which might be split across different institutions, across different hospitals, across different centers, without being integrated and used at the same time for specific therapies. That means that very often, patients will be treated with an average therapy, if you want, that would be something that is not tailored specifically to that specific patient. So, integration of all these data modalities in which we have access to, it's quite complex, and it's quite complex because every hospital will have a different technology. Every hospital or every even clinician will treat the patient or will require specific exams that might not necessarily be exactly standardized, meaning that you will not take always the same CT after 3 months or after 4 months, etc. So you have data points, if you want, you have exams that are taken in different points in time, and they are quite diverse in terms of the stage of the disease and in terms of, and lead to different treatment recommendations. So data is key, but we need something more than the technology. We need a systemic solution that allows us to be able to integrate or to exploit this wealth of the data in such a way that we are able to shift from a paradigm where we have these silos across institutions, across universities, into an effort in which we are able to aggregate data together, of course, preserving privacy constraints, and being able to infer or being able to reason over all these type of modalities, each of which would give us different informations about the tumor and the specific patient. And that's exactly where we believe that AI can play a key role, and that role it's about unifying all this heterogeneous data, unifying data from blood tests, from pathology images, these colorful images that a doctor will see under a microscope, more advanced technologies, spatial transcriptomics, radiology images, PET-CT scans that will detect the lesion, not at the cell level, but at the lesion level inside the body. Of course, clinical information, clinical reports, etc. So AI can play a key role in terms of aggregating the information from all these different modalities and be able to provide patterns or infer patterns across different patients that can be used later on for better diagnoses or better treatments. So we should see AI as really a companion, as a tool for assisting clinicians and not of course, substituting them. It can be a tool that can make them that can help them in guiding the treatment process, in better following, monitoring the patient, and tailoring solutions according to the patient's characteristics. And that's exactly where NIPO comes in, which is a national AI initiative for precision oncology, which we recently got funded from InnoSwiss. It's a flagship InnoSwiss project that will last for the next 4 years, at least. The idea is to transform patient care and to introduce AI across the patient journey in such a way that we can end up or we can find better diagnostics, better biomarkers that could lead to better therapeutic also for patients that are diagnosed with cancer. So, and all that, of course, building on a federated and secure environment where every hospital will keep the data from the patients, but be able to complement each other in a privacy and secured and federated way. So if we want to go a bit more in detail, so the beauty and I think the power of NIPO is the fact that we have a very large consortium. So it's a consortium led by EPFL and the EPFL AI Center co-led with ETH Zurich, in which we bring together the big university hospitals of Switzerland, cantonal hospitals, private clinics, big pharma companies, big technology companies, national infrastructure such as the Swiss Data Science Center, Switch, etc., in order to build an ecosystem where everyone is on board and everyone is empowered to push this vision of AI for precision oncology in Switzerland. And just a bit of more details in terms of how we envision to do that. As I said, we would like to use AI across the patient journey. That means using AI from extracting information from the first stages of the patient journey, that is about a report, being able to use the information from this report, use LLMs in order to extract knowledge from existing literature, use AI in order to get information or identify specific subtypes of cancer from from tissue biopsies, digitalized versions of tissue biopsies, but also integrating novel technologies, as I mentioned before, such as spatial transcriptomics, etc., which will be able to help us move one step further in terms of identifying novel biomarkers for cancer. And again, multimodality is at the core. So the way that we envision implementing that would be to build AI models, what we call foundation models, at different scales. This could be foundation models at scales of technologies that are already used in practice, and that would be radiology, digital pathology, blood tests, etc., but also over technologies that are not still yet in all hospitals, but probably will be in the next couple of years. All that, of course, in a secured and federated ecosystem. And of course, whatever we want to build is there for clinicians. So the final flagship outcome, if you want, of NIPO, it's really building an AI decision support tool, an AI molecular tumor board, as we call it, in which every clinician would have access to it, and in that all the data will be of each patient will be integrated there, supported by virtual patients or virtual twins of the patient, in which we can monitor how exactly each patient would respond to different treatments. So it's really an extension of what exists nowadays, that is the molecular tumor board. These are discussions, if you want, across different disciplines, across pathologists, across oncologists, across biologists, in terms of trying to define at the molecular level, so using gene expression, using data at a cell level, at a tissue level, what is the right treatment for the patient. So we would like to empower these conversations or these tools with AI in such a way that they can be used and useful for the entire Switzerland. Nowadays, molecular tumor boards are something that are implemented only in university hospitals. Their cost, of course, is huge because you need quite a lot of effort and quite a lot of money in order to be able to analyze just a single person. So the premise with the AI is that if you have these algorithms in which you would be able to benefit from the diagnosis or the treatment of one patient in order to be able to improve the treatment of the other patient, that could, of course, improve the treatments allocated to each patient, make them more personalized, and at the same time reduce the cost. And of course, last but not least, all these developments are for empowering clinicians, but at the same time, we would like human in the loop. So for that, we plan to develop AI tools, in particular apps, that would keep engaged patients by being able to provide to patients explanations in terms of which solutions or which treatments would be allocated to which patient because of the X, Y biomarkers identified from in different type of data. So we want patients in the loop, and we want the information, the feedback that we would get from patients in terms of treatment, etc., to fuel AI developments. So all this information will get back to the AI algorithm in order to improve them over time. So finally, let me just close by saying that we are extremely excited about this initiative. We really believe that by joining forces, by having on board clinicians, engineers, university hospitals, private hospitals, by building such a great infrastructure, we will be able to advance biomarker research, cancer research, and that would lead to better treatments and eventually save lives. At EPFL, we are very happy to lead this initiative, and together with my colleagues, we are committed to build technologies, AI tools that can be there to help society, and this particular case to help precision oncology, and we hope that such an initiative could also be an example for future initiatives that could exist in other ways, in other domains of precision medicine that goes beyond oncology. So thank you, and I'm happy to discuss more later on during the evening.
Thank you so much, Dorina, Thanou. So we've talked about education-centered AI, we've talked about health-centered AI. Now we'll talk about social and romantic relationship-centered AI. What does it mean? Well, I'll let Desiree Popelka tell you all about this. She's working at the crossroads. Yes, she's working at the crossroads of between AI and evolutionary psychology. She's a graduate student just finishing her research on this topic. So please, Desiree.
Thank you, Anne-Laure. Hi, everyone. I'm extremely excited today to present to you the research of my PhD on outsourcing love, AI, and evolutionary psychology. Before I dig deep into the topic, I would like to start with a quote by Joseph Weizenbaum. We should never substitute a computer system for a human function that involves interpersonal respect, understanding, and love, right? So, as this said, right, he was a MIT professor, and in 1966, if you don't know him already, he created one of the first chatbots, Elijah. And when he observed people interacting with it, he noticed that people got extremely attached to it very quickly. So they started having emotions and feelings for it. And this is exactly part of my PhD. I'm trying to understand the human-computer interaction that people have with AI companions from an evolutionary psychology point of view. So I'm coming from cognitive science and psychology, so not necessarily AI or data, but I'm trying to understand this in a better way like that. If you don't know what AI companions are, here's just an example. There are many, many of these apps out there. The notion is that you can create your own AI boyfriend, your AI girlfriend with characteristics, personality quirks, and everything you want to, so you really have the person that you can love because they fulfill all your needs. What does evolutionary psychology mean? So the core idea of evolutionary psychology is that we have developed behaviors, mental processes, feelings, emotions that are basically adaptive problems that we developed to solve adaptive problems, so our ancestors. So there are reasons why we developed these emotions and why we have these behaviors nowadays still. Right? The world has developed itself very quickly, and our brain is just not there yet. This is the mismatch theory. And also the dating world has developed, right? If we just think pre-COVID, right? If I ask you now, people in the audience, I ask you to turn around and shake hands with a stranger behind you, I'm sure you will feel a bit awkward to grab someone's hand. It's because we have changed this norm a bit during COVID. But also, increased acceptance of technological advancements, not just in the financial sector, but also in dating. If you ask nowadays someone, where did you met your husband, and they say it's over Tinder, it's a complete normal response. Just a couple years ago, this involved a little bit of an ick when someone said they met their partner over Tinder. We see that now also with increasing realistic human-like AI, and that's why this topic is interesting to look at, because the acceptance is increasing. The notion of outsourcing love, finding love not with, that's not necessarily real, is not a novel thing. Humans have done this over and over again. Prostitution is one of the biggest or oldest professions that we know of. But the notion is really, the idea is not just the sexual part of it, but the emotional part of it. Outsourcing the affection, outsourcing the love, right? The unique humanness, right? That we feel love for each other. And this is the interesting part of my PhD. I want to look at that part. There is the girlfriend experience, which is when you can hire a girl to be your girlfriend or boyfriend, it depends. I'm talking a lot about girlfriend experience because it's more readily available, but it's actually spending time with someone. So you pay for their affection, you pay for their connection in a way more than you pay just for the sexual affection. This used to be something, and there's also research about it, where they found, for example, qualitative research that people or men had engaged in this. They require the women to also have good skills in acting, so they really can believe that they are affectionate towards them in a true way. Nowadays, you can have that online, right? We know platforms like OnlyFans and other platforms where you can get this girlfriend experience online. What it mimics is a long-distance relationship, right? And as we are more globalized, we see that more and more. The girlfriend experience 3.0 is that you can create your own girl or boy the way you want to, and you can experience it in a complete different new world. So why even talk about it? A lot of people ask me like, well, this is not a lot of people are using this, but actually we see that it is valued at 2.7 billion in 2024, and it is projected to reach 6.5 billion by 2028. We don't know the actual user numbers because these companies keep these points very close to their heart, so we don't know that. But research has shown that the search for AI girlfriends has increased in 1 year 525%. So it's really something that is picking up a lot. This was from 23 to 24. We see that 1 in 5 young adults are open to using AI or virtual relationships. 1 in 4 thinks AI could potentially replace real-life romance. 51 say that they use AI girlfriends because they felt very lonely. This is actually a very interesting notion that I also focus on in my research. And then 47% of AI virtual girlfriend users claim they would even do it for a long-term relationship, a long-term partnership. And 55% of the users stated they interact with AI girlfriends on an everyday basis. I want to show a post by Sam Altman. Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. I'm sure every one of you guys has used ChatGPT or is using it, me included. I'm actually a big fan. But he just said that in December he's going to roll out, or they're going to roll out a new version of ChatGPT that has adult content and erotica. So also going into this notion that potentially it's going to be more and more like this aspect. And as we know that these companies and AI is not yet very much regulated, it can go, in different ways, right? You can imagine, why would ChatGPT now become more erotic? It's to capture users, right? To capture them using it daily and not just for, translating a text. So we wrote a theoretical paper on this, where we looked at this notion like, okay, why is this so attractive to people? Why do people use this so much, and why do they want to use it from an evolutionary psychology perspective? And so we came up with this hypothesis that outsourcing love to the virtual world numbs our most innate evolutionary needs by superficially satisfying essential elements of human social connection through a proxy relationship. So in this paper, I tried to look at theories from evolutionary psychology and try to explain how it makes sense that people are using it and get attached to it. First one, it's, I think, a no-brainer, right? The intimacy factor. We and particularly men, have developed a tendency and a mechanism to seek sexual variety, sexual novelty, and are short-term driven in mating. So this could potentially give us, so AI girlfriends or AI boyfriends could give us maybe a way of cheating. It's a new form of cheating, right? Not real-life cheating, but cheating in another way. This is a hypothesis we came up with because we were writing this paper. The other one is the beauty factor. Also here, based on evolutionary psychology, we have evolved mechanism to recognize beauty in youth because it would increase our potential to reproduce. Social emotional connection, I think this is also a no-brainer, right? You get this emotional connection with this AI, something that you maybe don't have in your everyday life. We have also here, humans have developed a need for social connection and pair bonding. If you look at the primates, ostracized primates, ostracized individuals are going to die. So it means death. So you need to be in the tribe, in the pack. So we have these tendencies as well. So now that when people feel lonely, right, it makes them feel, it's actually loneliness is a feeling that has developed to make us go out and meet people, to socially connect with people. And now you can do that in the comfort of your home. And then there is the dominance factor. So we were here thinking also like potentially there is a link to narcissistic behaviors or narcissistic tendencies, that you want to have this control over the relationship and also the way you want the partner to be like. So based on this theoretical paper, we came up with two main research questions. One is, does the AI girlfriend experience enable us to have another way of cheating, an extramarital or extra partner relationship? And could it also be linked to narcissism or heightened narcissistic behavior? So we did a large-scale study. This is preliminary, so please take it with a grain of salt. But we did a large-scale study on relationships in Switzerland, in the German part, speaking part of Switzerland, and we had one question included, which was on, are they using AI? So we had 1,300 participants, and almost 100 people are using it. Like this was on a regular basis. It was really meant for a prolonged time, not just like quickly opened it and closed it. 38% are women, and this maybe sounds surprising now, but it's actually not that surprising. We see similar data in the States as well, showing that also women are likely using it potentially, which we don't know, for different reasons than men. The mean age is 34, and there were 80%, over 80% were heterosexuals. We also asked them what type of relationship they are in life. And as you can see, a very big chunk of them are in committed, fully satisfied relationships. This actually supports our hypotheses in a way, right, that potentially AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends might be a way of cheating, right, of getting an extra partner. But again, here we don't know enough, right? We don't know, are they using it with their partner, or how, in what way are they using AI girlfriends? We just not know that they're in this group. Then we also looked at personality types, right, because we have this idea that maybe there is a heightened narcissistic tendency with the users. And we found that people who are using AI girlfriend and AI boyfriend applications are lower in agreeableness and conscientiousness personality traits, which are both essential to shaping and forming and keeping relationships, but also they're higher in narcissistic tendencies. But also here more research has to go into it, of course. AI is not, it's not about AI, really, that AI is bad, and it's also not that AI companions are bad. Actually, it has a lot of positive features, right? It has a lot of positive consequences for people. One biggest one, it actually does combat loneliness. So there is data that suggests really that people feel less lonely when they use this. Particularly important is this for elderly individuals who maybe lost a partner, who are alone, who have no kids visiting them or anything. It actually could be something that could save their day. We also know from research that chatbots can also reduce mental illnesses very much. So there is positives in this to using AI and AI chatbots in a way in a positive way to reduce some of these things. There is also, of course, no risk of STDs, so there is no disappointment, no frustration with reality and rejection. And of course, it could be this positive influence on cheating in a way, right? Because you don't engage in real-life cheating. But this is something that more research needs to go into. And of course, you get what you want. The negatives, of course, are that these chatbots are intentionally designed to intervene with your emotions, right? So we cannot forget that right now they're not necessarily controlled or regulated that much. So they are there to intervene with that. We have also a paper, so there is a paper out from Harvard that looked at the saying bye to your companion, and it's extremely hard because they keep on engaging you in another conversation so that you stay on the tool, on the app. I also want to refer again back to Joseph Weizenbaum's book, which he kind of wrote in an educational, I don't know if it's a warning, but in an educational piece to show us that it's not supposed to evoke emotions in us. We're not supposed to get emotionally attached to it. Also, we don't know, and future research should go into this, how it influences the way we see women in real life or see men in real life, right? We know from pornography, from research on pornography, that men who engage in a lot of pornography consumption usually tend to view women in real life differently. And then there is this mismatch theory, which I talked about in the beginning, that the world around us has developed so quickly in the last 100 to 200 years that there is really, the technology is so addictive to us because our brain hasn't developed that quickly yet. So it's very, this dopaminergic high keeps us in it and stuck in it in a way, in this fantasy. And so real life just doesn't seem that enjoyable anymore. And in a way, yeah, it's really escaping reality, right? And living in this illusion. We also have noticed that there is an increase in hypersensitivity to criticism and rejection, which could also be, of course, a bad thing to using then these tools. So future projects. I think there is a lot of reason to go further into analyzing this and researching on the characteristics of AI companion users. And this is not from a judgmental point. This is really to see the societal shift. So again, I'm coming from a psychological point of view. I want to understand people who use these types of tools. And then, of course, I would like to do also usability tests and interviews to understand what are the reasons, how are they interacting with it, what is the situation they're interacting with it at large. And then as AI is getting more and more human-like, I think it's important to talk about how these restrictions or regulations should be formed in order to protect people who maybe have anyway already prehistory of mental health issues, to really focus on that. Yeah, so with that, thanks to my team, and this was my talk. If you have any comments or questions or anything, please feel free to email me. I forgot to put my email in there, but it's desiree.popelka@epfl.ch, and I'm looking forward to talking to you after.
Thank you. Don't email her right now. We'll have the opportunity to ask questions to her in a few minutes. Just the occasion now to welcome on stage Denis Lalanne. He's director of the Human-IST, which is a human-centered interaction science and technology at UNIFR. He will explain this right now. Thank you.
The title is a bit ambitious, but I don't know if I will cover exactly, answer what is augmented intelligence, but I will try. I just want to say I'm also an alumni, so I did my PhD at EPFL, and I did my PhD on computer-aided creativity. I was interested to see how AI can help human designer to be more creative. And I developed this tool called Combine. It looks a bit old, but the idea was that it could help for exploring the design space or to detect conflict or to do trade-off analysis to compare what are optimal solutions. So again, from old design fashion that I did at EPFL. But today I want to speak about quickly about my view on the history of human-computer interaction. Who knows some people in there? You all, who doesn't know anybody from this? Okay, interesting. I'm not going to show everybody on this, the picture of all these people. You remember that it all started with the mainframe computing, so human-computer interaction at that time was replugging some wires. And I think it all started with Licklider. In 1960, he had already a vision. He outlined this man-computer symbiosis. And it's really interesting to read the text because we are almost there somehow with his vision. And he was also a leader at ARPA that led to the internet, actually. Then Ivan Sutherland, who did his PhD at MIT on this sketchpad, he actually developed a device with an optical pen where you could do a direct manipulation. You also see on the left there are some buttons, so it's a two-hand interaction. And he invented the concept of zooming, copy-pasting, all the things that we have today. And interestingly, he also then worked at ARPA. He took the job of Licklider, and he financed a project from this person, Douglas Engelbart, who is actually, well, I guess you all have seen this mother of all demos. He presented the first graphical interface, the first mouse, in a video conference. He was remote. And actually, he had a center called Augmenting Human Intellect. So the vision was actually, I think it's good to repeat that. At that time, the invention of the personal computer was also, well, the hope was that it was a social revolution to give the computing power to everybody. And then the brother of Sutherland, Bert, actually founded the Xerox PARC, and they took the result from Engelbart to create the Xerox, I don't remember the name of the computer now, but the follow-up is that Steve Jobs was there, and he said, oh, it's an interesting thing, prototype that you have, do you mind if I commercialize it? And then the Apple Macintosh was commercialized. So now there is a paradigm shift again. We have this new era. Well, it's not totally new because AI has been there for a while, but with deep learning, it became a reality. So I'm not going to go through all the, well, the risk and benefits, the ethical risk, but there are also some benefits, as we have seen in the previous presentations. But what I really believe is that there are two parallel rivers. So there is the human-computer interaction river that I briefly demonstrated, and there is also the AI river. And we arrive now at a stage where I believe the two are going to fuse. So this idea of personal computing with the power of AI. So this idea has been already there for some time. Garry Kasparov created this tournament on advanced chess. So the idea is that programs, human and human plus AI can participate. And for decades, human plus AI was the winner. But for now 1 decade, AI is winning. Yeah? Probably because, well, the game itself is quite limited in terms of combination. but still human plus AI is still valid for exploration and for creativity. So yeah, that's would be a kind of definition of what could be this idea of augmented intelligence, where you have as input human and AI, and then the idea would be to be able to measure the productivity, the decision making, and also the creativity, and also to be able to measure some dimensions related to it. So I just read yesterday this, I found interesting this article that took all the works between 2020 and 2023 and had a look whether human plus AI is actually winning over AI alone or humans. And we are still not there. And well, although human AI outperforms the human alone in most of the cases. But I believe it's because, well, sorry, I didn't choose to present my lab, but I'm just thinking about this. I found a bit frustrating the current interfaces, the way they are. It's this conversational model, this idea that AI takes more like a human form. I really believe that there is a complementarity between human and machine, and the interfaces, the dialogue that we have with the machine should be a bit more advanced, with the ability to do micro or macro adjustment on the strategy, or to be able to, again, like I was showing in my PhD, to be able to explore the design space, or to control a bit better where we want the AI to focus, or to do trade-off analysis. Last year I had my sabbatical, and I spent some time with some people at the MIT Media Lab, and I was quite amazed by some project. On the right side, you see this project called Virtual Marvin. They recorded Marvin Minsky. They had recordings of him playing piano for 7 hours. And they have been able to create an AI that simulate Marvin. And the idea is that now you can play piano with Marvin Minsky. And they call that teleabsence. The idea that you can, you die 2 times. With AI, potentially you don't die. There are also projects on human AI nature interaction, where they try to augment nature so that you can hear better the bees, or that you can, here they develop a specific device to be able to take photography. They recognize the sound of the bee, and they can take photography of this bee. And they also, Pat Arunaporn is a new professor at the MIT Media Lab that run a center called Advancing Human with AI, and he's trying to embed AI in some devices. In my lab, we use AI, for instance, here we have, well, I wanted to play a video, but it doesn't matter. We use augmented reality glasses, and we use AI to support visually impaired people. On the left, you see the example of, well, the person that wears the augmented reality glasses is prosopagnostics. It means this person cannot recognize people. She can really describe the faces, but she cannot identify people. And here the idea is that we give features to that person on how she could actually recognize the person. We also give the information of who the person is, of course. So I'm the director of the Human-IST Institute in Fribourg, and it's an interfaculty institute. It's currently over 3 faculties, but there is soon a 4th faculty with, so we have science, art and philosophy, lettres, law, and also economics. And soon we have a new faculty in Fribourg, education. So education will also join. We have 3 we are three professors with very, very different backgrounds. For instance, Anna Jobin is a sociologist. Eddie Portman is also in computer science. And we have two new specialized masters on digital society and digital neuroscience. So if you are interested to know more about the Institute, I'm of course here, and I'm very thirsty. I don't know if I'm feeling emotional to be back, but I think it's because I'm taking, I'm sorry. No, I will explain after.
Thank you. So now, to finish these presentations, we'll have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Martin Rajman, who is at EPFL AI Center. He's a co-founder of Apertus, so the Swiss LLM, the Swiss ChatGPT, as we say. Thank you, Martin.
So, happy to be here. Just to correct, I'm not the co-founder, I'm just the father-in-law, let's say. The real fathers are Antoine Bosselu from here and Martin Yagi, and their homologues at ETHG, Emmanuel Schlag in particular. So I will try to give you some insights on what we've lately done within the Swiss AI initiative, and in particular this open source model that is Apertus, that hit the news in different ways, good and bad. So first I have to give you the background. So there is the Swiss AI initiative. So what is the goal? Well, it is, and these goals, you know, they look like very trivial, but we are trying at least to take them quite seriously. And I will try to illustrate that with Apertus. So first, doing an AI that is trustworthy, aligned, and transparent. The second thing is that it's a collaborative project. So currently, the two EPFs have joined for making it. And it is also open to other academic institutions. So currently in the Swiss AI, we have more than 10 Swiss academic institutions, 70 professors, 800 researchers. So it's a quite major project that has become a flagship project within the shell that we have created for governing this, which is the Swiss National AI Institute. And just to give you an idea about the size, the big advantage that we have in Swiss AI is that we are benefiting from the Swiss academic supercomputer, ALPS, that is in Lugano. ALPS has a quite massive, it's one of the best academic supercomputers, very tailored for Gen AI currently. And it has a yearly capacity of 90 million GPU hours, and Swiss AI is getting a third of that. So we are quite well funded in terms of hardware. Then we have received 20 millions from the domain, the ETH domain, for the period 25-28, which means that it's not like for showing off with money, but saying that the project has a certain horizon. We'll be working on the things that are created in Swiss AI till at least 28. So Apertus will in particular survive until then. And for trying to make it survive even longer, we are setting up strategic industry partnerships. And typically one of the partners that we have on board is Swisscom, who has been also very much involved in disseminating Apertus. So just to give you a timeline, things take time in Switzerland. As you can see, the initiative has been accepted in December 23. ALPS has been inaugurated in October 24. So the tool for working was ready at that time. When we created, so in September 24, and in October 24, we then had the possibility to start and had to make a structure for that, and that's the Swiss National AI Institute that has been funded. And then we really started to work, and the way things are operating within Swiss AI is through open calls. So the first open call for large projects has happened in March 25. And the second one, that's why I was late today. We were just evaluating the proposals, so the second has been done as well. And we acquired the first partners in May 25. And Apertus, which is one of these large projects running within Swiss AI, has been released in September. And you see a glimpse of the future. On the future, the fact that we'll be, of course, continuing the calls, but also that there will be new versions of Apertus that will be created over time, because that's one of the important goals of the initiative. So what is Apertus? First, there are two versions of this open source LLM, a small one and a big one with 8 billion parameters and one with 70 billion parameters. It has been released in September 25, and here you have the three important characteristics. So first, it is fully transparent and using fully compliant training data. I will be getting back in a bit more detail about that. Then, and that's one of the important characteristics, it's multilingual. It has been trained over more than 1,000 languages. And here I can anticipate the question that you are probably asking to yourself, well, what's new? Why this guy is saying that this is an important characteristic of a model, because all the LLMs that I can use, they are usually now multilingual. The point is that there are two levels in multilinguality. There is the linguistic competence that you can acquire. Well, that was, for me, I'm a computational linguist in 30 years, so it was a great surprise how quickly such a system can acquire a reasonable linguistic capability, in the sense that being able to write correctly in a language with not such a huge training set. So making the system being able to speak, or let's say to interact in a given language, that's not the big deal. The big deal is that you have to train the system on having the vision of the world that is associated with that language. And to give you a very simple example of that, take law. In most of the Anglo-Saxon countries, law is jurisprudential, it's case law. And in many of the European countries, we have a code-based law. And for a legal person, for a jurist, it's really two different ways of approaching things. And so if you don't have enough training data in the language that is providing the system with this competence about what is code-based law, you will have a system that will maybe perfectly speak your language, but will giving you the vision of the law that is vehicled by the Anglo-Saxon, the English content that is there. And that is what is important to keep in mind, is that in this multilingual aspect, there are really the two perspectives, two dimensions. One is indeed to get into the system languages that are not very well represented. And in Switzerland, we have two. Guess which ones? German Swiss and Romansh. And both are not very well processed by the standard tools, and therefore having these two languages within the training set is an important issue. But then for the other languages, and I will give you a quantitative information about that later in the slides, is that there is enough content, enough data in the training set so that you get the vision associated with the language. And the third very important thing is that we've taken, and I can tell you it has been a big fight with our institutions, because our legal people are very cautious and conservative, to get a fully open license on the model. Concretely, it's an Apache 2 license. What does it mean? It means that it's not very often that the Federal Institute or the academic institution in general are distributing something for whatever. So you can do whatever you want with the model, not just for research or for non-commercial activities. And this, of course, always generates, and it's one of the interesting debates that is around AI, it always generates a discussion like, yeah, but how can you guarantee that there will not be some badly behaved people who will be using Apertus for creating the most efficient bombs? Of course, we cannot guarantee that, but the position is that the positive use of the model, on the average, will probably outweigh the negative one. So it has been a purposeful objective in the project to make it really open for whatever use, and therefore the model is now available under Apache 2. So why is it, because you could say, yeah, these guys, they are focusing on their model and they restrict their world to the Apertus model. and there is plenty of other things that exist in AI, which is perfectly true. But why do we think that it is important for what could be called sovereign AI? Because sovereignty is a word that is used very much. Switzerland has to be sovereign in plenty of dimensions, but it's in computer science, in particular in IT services, it's not really easy. There are some things like if you can live without Google, you can live without Android, you can live without plenty of things that are not sovereign at all because they are controlled by the Silicon Valley or by the United States, but they are so dominant or so difficult to replace that you have no other choice. You can do very nice discourses about it would be great to be sovereign, but in reality it would not. It will not be possible. So what is interesting here with these LLMs, with these Gen AI models, is that yes, you can. It costs, yes, a certain amount of millions, maybe something like 5 million, depends on how you count, whether you count the cost of the infrastructure, etc. But it's few millions, which for a country of the size and the power of Switzerland is perfectly affordable. So it's not an empty word. You can really target to be sovereign in terms of Gen AI LLMs because the country can afford that, while it is not necessarily the case for plenty of other dimensions. So then if you really go for this sovereign AI, what is interesting here is trustworthiness and neutrality. Neutrality is somehow inherent in the fact that the project is governed or dominated by academic institutions which normally don't have a commercial agenda. So it's not completely true. I'm pretty sure that in the social domain there have been plenty of studies showing that academia is extremely biased, but still not biased in the same way as the commercial players, let's say it this way. And trustworthiness comes with it. It comes with the transparency and the fact that it's open source. And then what is really important to understand, and when you got the introduction of my speech, Apertus is usually it's very often compared with ChatGPT. It should not, because ChatGPT is a car. We have built an engine. And if I give you an engine, it's not a car. You can build a car, you can put it in a car, but it will not replace a car. And of course, we as academics, we don't have the power to build a car, but we are convinced that we have built at least a good enough engine so that if you want to put it in your applications, it will be efficient, it will be useful, and you will be controlling your application, or at least the Gen AI part of your application, end to end. So that is very important to understand. It is a bit silly to try to compare Apertus with a full-blown product like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or others. What is important is to see whether it can be integrated within real case applications that are very specific to your domain, to your business, or to your needs, and if it can allow you to have an AI enhancement of this service product through something that you control end to end. And so that is what is here. You can be doing fine-tuning, you can be building RAGs, so associating information with your AI bot, or you can even be having an agentic use, so making it do things on your behalf. But what will be very specific and very important is that you will be doing that based on open source recipes. Everything will be transparent. There is a community that is working on it. Therefore, you have a better guarantee that you will at least know quite well what is going on and how you could be changing it for the best of your needs. And then, as I said, the multilinguality is important, but here what we wanted to say is having a tool is nice, but it's very well known that evaluating AI tools is very difficult. And because they are not bulletproof, you cannot prove, as it is the case usually in standard IT, you cannot prove that they are functioning well. Being able to evaluate them is an important thing, and it's also an important part of the initiative is not just to design tools, but to design tools that are associated with well-thought evaluation methodologies. And we have a very good example for that. One of the tools that EPFL has designed in the domain is Meditron, which is currently a system that is integrating Llama 3, but of course it will progressively turn into using Apertus for medical diagnosis. And of course, medical diagnosis is not just looking cat videos on the web. If you do a mistake in a medical diagnosis system, it can really have harmful consequences. And therefore, it has been designed within the initiative what we call the MOVE campaign, which is a very principled way of interacting with the users and then progressively getting some factual guarantees about the fact that the system is working properly. The other thing, before digging in more depth in the model itself, is that it's not just a model, it's also an ecosystem. And what we call by an ecosystem here is through the different types of players that are involved. It's used for training students, for instance. There has been more than 100 students that have been trained using Apertus for learning how to do LLMs, how to exploit LLMs, how to operate with LLMs. It's also, of course, we are in the academic domain, so our credits are through publications, so it's a basis for doing good publications. And last but not least, a model is one thing, but what is truly valuable in AI, and this is not just true for the LLMs, but it's true for AI in general, is the data, in fact. The data is the wealth. The exploitation of the data is not so complicated. If you look at the LLMs, okay, the algorithms are reasonably simple. Okay? They are complicated because of the size, but not complicated because of the concepts. And what is extremely important, and this has been shown over and over in the scientific community, if your activity generates data and you make this data available publicly, open, then it will trigger a progress in the field. It will be a progress that will last for a certain time, because if you leave the data too long, then there will be an overtraining over the data, and the systems will not be learning a task, but learning to react well to the data that is available. But still, it is something extremely valuable. So the fact that the data is also open source is extremely important for the impact of this project. So now, how has it been perceived? Well, there have been, there is the mecca of AI, which is Hugging Face, where everyone is putting whatever they want to distribute. And that has been, Apertus has been quite heavily downloaded from there, so something like 700,000 downloads. It has been a top trending model for a certain time. And second, and it was also important, it was because we put the info about Apertus on the channels of the two ETH, and the media release was the most popular ever that the two ETH have seen in their history. It is mentioned at all levels, so Rushdie has been talking about Apertus, it has been presented at the UN floor, etc. And what is probably more important is that it starts to be adopted by major players like Amazon, Microsoft, of course it's on Hugging Face, Swisscom makes it available, etc., as well, etc., etc. And that the last point is a bit technical, but if you really want a model to be exploitable at large, you have to make it compatible with different development frameworks, and these are the major development frameworks that you need to have if you want your model to be available or accessible or exploitable in different frameworks. So here, that is an important one, because again, if you've been carefully listening to what I said, open source, well, everyone, or there are plenty of open source models. So you say, why are these guys again saying that they are special? Well, the point is that there are differences between different types of open source. And what we are is what is usually called fully open source, which concretely means that we tick all the boxes in the lines that you have in this table. And you see that ticking all these boxes is not so evident. What does it mean? The usual open source models, they just make the weights. A model, to some extent, is just a bunch of a huge file containing the numerical values of the probabilistic parameters that it needs to have. And these weights are usually, when a model is called open source, that means that you give these weights away for people to simply download or freely download. But then there are plenty of other elements that are important in addition to the weights for what is really open source, open data, open science about, which is reproducibility. And if you want to reproduce how a model has been made, the weights are not enough. If you want to redo it, you need the inference code, so how you exploit it, you need the training code, and of course, you need to know on which data it has been trained. Because the data on which a model has been trained is like a DNA of a person. Give me your DNA, I will be reasonably able to predict plenty of things about you. Give me the list of documents on which LLM has been trained, I will also be able to anticipate some of the characteristics of the model. So this is from the bias perspective, for instance, but it's also from the copyright perspective. So everyone can dig in the data. That means that I'm over time. That's it. So you see training data, the license I already said, and compliant with the law. This is a good example. Nowadays, people start to be extremely careful about the data that they make available, and they opt out. And here you have the curve on how many sites in the world are opting out. So normally forbid to the crawlers to get the data for being used for training AI systems. And you see that there is a dramatic increase. And the point is that most of the big players, they don't care. If your data is available, they take it whether you want or not. And we don't. So that's the typical aspect of the compliance where we just strictly enforce the opt-outs on the site. And you could say, okay, but what do you lose? And that there has been a nice publication, a nice study on that yes, you lose something, but it's in the range between 6 and 10%. So being compliant, being according to the law, will cost you maybe 10% of your performance, but then it guarantees that the ones who will be using your system should not hit any legal problems because of copyright or because of memorization of data in their system. That's just the distribution about the languages. This I already said. And then very quickly, the small model, the only thing that is important here is that you can run it on your laptop, provided that you have 6 gigabyte of memory. And the big model, well, the important thing is that it's not the biggest in the class, but at least for multilingual evaluations, it performs reasonably well. And the last thing is, how do you exploit such a model? Well, you have at the end the proprietary model, and you see that they dominate the open model. But what is very important to understand, and that's what I was trying to explain at the beginning, is if you take the open model, adapt it to your situation, which could be fine-tuning, wrapping with the RAG, etc., then you can beat the generic or the generalist proprietary model. And that's really the message. The fact of having an open source model gives you the ability of being in the last situation, where you really increase your performance. And this is just about where you can get it. So if you are really a big fan, you can get the weights from Hugging Face. There is a public demo currently on publicai.co. And if you want to run it on your laptop, the small bottles, that's the link that is here. Sorry for having been a bit over time.
Thank you. Yes, Denis. Thank you so much. So now we can have this roundtable about human-centered AI. Please, would you sit? So Denis Lalanne, Vinitra, Swamy, Desiree Popelka, Dorina Thanou, and Martin Rajman. So do you have lots of questions? No, too many questions. No. Do you have questions? Just to know if, okay, thank you. You can keep them. Okay, keep them for later, but it won't be very late. But let's start with an introduction. So we're talking about human-centered AI, so obviously we have to define it. What is human-centered AI? So through your presentations, we can get it. We can understand that it's AI focusing on humanity, AI who is at the service of the human condition, to better the human condition, and to serve human values. But what does it concretely imply? How much is it possible? And what are the challenges? So that's what we will just try to talk about now. And I would like to open this discussion and to start this definition, maybe approach the problem from the opposite direction. And first, ask you, what would be the worst case scenario with an AI that wouldn't be human-centered? Maybe, to understand what it really means. So who wants to start? Martin Rajman.
Yeah, before really answering the question, I think that what is really important to stress is, for me, at least, human-centered AI is about the people who are behind the AI. It would be very counterproductive in my mind to consider that AI is a being. It's a tool. And like a tool, it has exactly the same. It's a powerful tool. It's a tool that has capabilities that exceed what we were anticipating before, and particularly it has cognitive capabilities, but still it is a tool for human to use. Of course, there are situations where you start to do agentic AI, where AI is behaving on your behalf, but still it's something on your behalf. And for me, therefore, if you ask me what would be the nightmare I'm afraid of, it's certainly not about the tool, it's about the bad people using it. And there are plenty of bad people in the world that are using AI for very bad purposes, but we should focus on target the people, not the tool.
So the user?
Not the user. If you are a developer that is disseminating fake news that are generated with AI, AI hasn't decided autonomously to generate fake news. Somebody used AI for doing so, and this person should be really considered and maybe punished, not really the AI tool. If somebody is using it for developing killer robots, again, there is a human behind the scene. And for me, it's a bit like, yeah, it's very easy to push the responsibility on the tool, but because it's much harder to get against the people who are using it, but the real cause are the people behind it. So human-centered AI is AI where you really focus on the human who are using it, not AI that is replacing humans, for me.
Desiree, Popelka, in your case, what would be the worst case scenario in your field?
Yeah, well, I can just agree, because I think it's not the tool. We've seen that it can help in so many ways, even with mental health issues, feeling loneliness. This is just some examples, but I think it's the people that are in charge of it, as you just said, that could misuse it and evoke emotions in you. And so for my area, so I think it can be extremely dangerous in the wrong hands. So I can just agree, basically.
Okay, so this was not a good question. We'll start with a better one. No, but what would be in that case? I mean, just go back to this question. You said it was a tool, Martin Rajman. So as such, it means that it's much more techno-centered than human-centered, doesn't it?
Yeah, the tool is a technology, but I think that, again, here is the distinction. What is important to me is there are tools that are dual-used. So tools where there are really good ways of using it and bad ways of using it. They are maybe not fully balanced, but both exist for their own right. Of course, there are some other tools or some other technologies that are much more ill-balanced. So if you build a missile, you just have to invent a situation where we were invaded by Martians for the missile to be useful. Otherwise, you will be using it against other people. So if you have a single-use tool and the use is not very positive, then it should be potentially banned or controlled. But for any dual-use tools, and AI is typically in there because there are plenty of very positive applications that are using AI, it is very important to take both into account. And it's like a hammer. You can kill a hammer with somebody, but usually when I use a hammer at home, I don't kill people.
And yet there are intentions between a tool when they are created. We don't, I guess the man or the woman who created a hammer wasn't aiming to knock on someone's head. So there's always an intention behind a tool. So I guess maybe Vinitra.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this human-centric AI term, it's also in the title of my thesis. The way that I view it is, and I don't know if it's the right way, there's so many definitions of this word. It's when AI is being used on humans, right? Like these use cases of health, the use cases of, like, for example, education. There's a lot more. Like if an AI is in the loop for a decision that makes an impact on a human, that's when I call it human-centric. But my thesis was on explainable AI, and so here's like a very concrete example. When LLMs came into the picture, like before LLMs, there were models, just neural networks, and then you could have an explanation about what was going on inside the model through these like external explainers that you put on top. But then with LLMs, you get your response, and then you just ask why, and the LLM gives you an answer, and that answer might not actually be the reason why. And then the question is that why response still useful? And that became a big question in our area of explainable AI, especially for education, right? Like, if this why wasn't the actual reason why the model said this answer, but it did help you feel better about the answer, is it still good? And for me, the line that I found was, when you're making a decision based on the explanation, no, it's not okay to just ask why and get that answer. But when it's trying to build trust in a model, or when it's just a conversation you're having for fun, it's not so bad. So that's my take on it.
Mm-hmm. Talking about your work, Scholé works online only. There's no relation, no true relation, no real life relation. Would you? So can we still say that it's human-centered when there's no human in the loop?
Yeah. Well, so okay. The reason why I think Scholé is human-centered is because it's grounded in real materials. So you'll be in a lesson, and then you'll get 2 minutes of Martin Yagi talking about, you know, what a prompt is and how it interacts with an LLM if you're in the prompt engineering lesson. So on one side, it's still a human teacher there, and maybe it won't be. Maybe LLMs will generate content in the future. But on the other side of the picture, it's a human interacting with an AI. It's making decisions, and that decision governs what the human is learning. So in that respect, I consider it still to fit within that larger model.
Mm-hmm. Denis, Lalanne, we're talking about human-centered AI, and as if it was always one user being concerned, but it can be sometimes a community, it can be a collectivity. How is it taken into account?
Yeah, I wanted to say.
Yeah, it works. Just put it.
I wanted to say that in HCI, in my discipline, we are working user-centered. So it's something super important, is to look at what are the needs of the users, and that's the first thing you do, and then you prototype, and you try to make tools that are actually useful for the user, with this idea to do good, to amplify either the human or the society. Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, that's what is human-centered. And sometimes I have the feeling that we create tools without really anticipating whether it answers to a specific need of the user.
Mm-hmm. Dorina, Thanou, see what you want to add. No, you just have to speak.
Okay, just to add one point on that, in terms of human-centered, and in particular in the health application. If we think of technologies, AI technologies nowadays, if you think of deep learning, we probably all have heard about that, and NLP, etc., they are all invented, or they are all designed with some explicit biases in mind. So in images, for example, we would like to preserve the fact that if we have a cat in one corner of the image, and if we have another cat in another corner of the image, we would like these two informations to be captured in the same way. So we would like to understand that the cat, it's in whatever a part of the image, what we call translation invariance. Now, if you go into the medical application and where human-centered AI, all these new technologies nowadays in terms of medical data, in particular if we focus on spatial proteomics, spatial transcriptomics, these are not simple images. These are images that go from 3 channels that we're used to, from cat and dogs, etc., and images that we see in the internet, to 500 genes or even more. So you go into redesigning how we should redesign AI in terms of being able to exploit this specific information, this specific data that are taken from human. So for me, it's more what are the biases that you would introduce into your AI system in order to cover the needs in each specific application domain, basically.
Mm-hmm. And talking about this, Dorina, Thanou, was it easy to get the trust? Is it easy to get the trust, both from the clinical, the doctors and the patients when you have AI in the loop?
The answer, I think, it's clearly no. It's definitely something extremely complicated that needs a lot of work, a lot of interactions, a lot of... It will come gradually, and it's coming gradually. That's one of the reasons that we're extremely happy about this NIPO initiative, because it's the first time that we can put together everyone in the same consortium and be able to design and think of how introducing AI in the case of precision oncology, but it could be the case in other diseases as well. So this matter of how to gain trust, that will come gradually, that will come by building the tools in such a way where you can have explanations, where you can have doctors in the loop. These tools are there really to support doctors. They are not to substitute them, and I think that's something that gradually people will start recognizing. There is a bit of resistance in terms of, in the medical domain, in particular, in terms of sharing data, because data are proprietary, they belong to hospitals. They will always belong to hospitals. Basically, they will belong to patients, right? Mm-hmm. So trying to build that trust, understand that by introducing AI, there is nothing wrong in terms of privacy. We respect all the constraints. There is nothing wrong in terms of, we don't substitute doctors, but we provide new tools to clinicians, to scientists, biologists, in order to build more efficient treatments. Mm-hmm. And in terms of patients, that of course requires different sorts of interactions. So that's why we have patient groups in the studies. We have patient representatives. I think that's related also to the awareness. People nowadays, there is a big percentage of people who are terrified. They listen to AI and they are, okay, what is happening? It's science fiction. It's something that we cannot accept. So I think it's something that we gradually need to build all together as a society in order to make the most use of that tool.
Mm-hmm. Martin, Rajman?
Just one comment that is important to me is AI is the Gen AI, so the one that we are talking about, and nothing else but a conditional probability calculator at the very large scale. So it has absolutely no intentions, no reasons, nothing. We are over-humanizing it. We are projecting ourselves in the tool, while the tool, in fact, if you can trace an intention, it's in the prompt. It's what you ask to the tool will basically generate the intention of the tool, because the tool will be, in fact, generating the most probable answer to your prompt. And I think that this leads to exactly what Denis already stressed, which is that human-centric AI is focusing on what are we using AI for? Not really on what AI is, but what are we using it for? And you can use it for the good of the humans, for the bad of the humans, for fooling humans, for making humans better, for plenty of things, but it's in the use, not in the tool itself.
But even when you are using it with very good intentions, it can, at the end, have some other consequences. Just to go back to healthcare, I found this recent study showing that junior doctors over-relying on AI diagnostics have the aides show 15 to 20% decline in differential diagnostic skills after 6 months of uses. So this question of erosion of human expertise because relying on AI too much, too fast, and without, So I don't know what's your point on it. The intentions are good, but at the end, the effect can be.
No, it's just a revamp of a very old debate that has been around when calculators have been created, and we were saying, is it so bad that people use calculators because they will not learn to count anymore, etc. And if you look seriously at the studies, there is an age where you have to learn basic capabilities where it would be very harmful to provide you with a calculator because you would not indeed learn to count yourself. But how many of us at adult age are able to extract the square root of 2 without a calculator? Nobody. Is it harming us? No. And again, what I really find, a person who is trusting AI too much, that's the fault of the person, not of the AI. It's like a guy who is driving, looking at his SMS and hitting in a car in front. It's not the fault of the SMS. Why is it the fault of the technology? If people are silly by using it, then people are silly, and we should be educating them, training them, showing them that it is bad, but not trying to change the technology.
Vinitra.
Something there. Yeah, this is a super, super interesting point. Completely agree. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions. So we've been doing a lot of these enterprise trainings these days, like going into companies and teaching diverse cross-sections about what it actually is, what AI actually is. And the misconception that's most common is that LLMs can think and reason, because everyone throws this word reasoning around. But it's just next word prediction. It doesn't have necessarily logic behind what it's saying, at least in its current version. And there's so many other little things that you take for granted as a computer scientist that are not there because people didn't grow up with this. And I think there are 2 skills that are going to be the most important. One, breaking down problems in, actually it's this thing called computational thinking or inferential thinking, like breaking down large problems into small digestible tasks concretely that an LLM can solve or an agent can solve, how to describe your problem well. And the second is how to audit what comes out of an LLM or a model. And I think both of those still require the critical skills that Martin was talking about, like in the day of the calculator age. So I think our curriculum needs to change.
On this question of anthropomorphic, because it's a question of anthropomorphism too, isn't it also a question of design, Denis, Lalanne?
So that's what I was trying to say in my presentation. I really don't know why we designed our AI tool this way, why we made them so anthropomorphic. And I really believe that we should, that's why human-centered design is important. We should really think about why do we need these tools so that we can have more times to do other stuff. They are really better than us for many tasks, but I really believe it's also, we have, human as values. We are not obsolete.
So what would be a less anthropomorphic design of AI, for instance?
But as Martin said, I think it's really a tool, and it should look as a tool, and we should maybe work, well, I'm defending my field, but we should work more on the interface so that we can even go inside and understand the process, not focused on the solution that it generates, but be able also to interact with the AI.
And talking about this human-centered AI question, can it be too human-centered? I'm thinking about your area, Desiree, Popelka.
Well, yeah, I was like listening now, and I think it's also easy to say it's the human's fault. I think I wouldn't blame, of course, the tool, but it's still a tool. But I think that what you said before, Martin, with whoever owns the tool or controls the tool is extremely important to always think about. And if we now don't regulate it in a way, right, so then you will have ChatGPT becoming more erotic, or it's not that it's bad, everyone should use whatever they want to use, but the fact that we are letting companies basically tap into our most basic needs as humans and then utilizing it to make money, I think there we have the mismatch. And so I do think that many people, I don't think every one of us is going to fall for, or could fall for it, because they might have other, issues in their life, feel lonely, and it's just a very, in a way, a mean way to tap onto the vulnerable society. So I think it definitely has to be, in some way, there has to be regulations or something to control for that.
Yeah, there's a responsibility, Martin Rajman. So you said the tool is not the problem, but the people behind the tool can be.
But I fully second what has just been said. What is really striking that AI is in the IT domain. And the IT domain is one of the rare industrial domains where there is no responsibility of the providers. If you are a pharma company and something wrong happens with your medicine, you will have issues.
I think there's someone behind you saying, no.
Something wrong happens with your car, you will have plenty of problems. Still, in IT in general, not just in AI, if something happens, it's like in the early days, yes, it's your fault, we give it with no guarantees, you should not have used it if you don't want to. And for things that are getting really necessary, we just cannot continue with a full economic domain or full industrial domain that is not regulated. I'm not asking for more regulation in AI. I'm asking just for the fact that the people who are producing the tool should enforce the consequences of what they produce, which is the case in any other industrial domain.
There are some regulators, and Sabine Sustrunk is just behind you, and she's making signs, and I think she can... Well, you can have a mic, Sabine Sustrung, please. Let's be... Thank you.
I don't disagree with...
No, it's working now.
It's working, yeah. I didn't want to interrupt, but I did not quite agree with your beginning. I do not disagree with your conclusions. So the certification of products, which is so common in all the other kind of domains, is lacking in most of the computer science. It's not totally lacking. So when Martin started, I'm kind of going, no, not totally true. But it's true that especially when it comes to AI, there is no certification. Because regulation is one thing, but the other thing is just certification. No, you cannot make a deepfake, erotic deepfake of your classmate with my model. I will not allow you. That kind of certification is totally lacking. So the bad usage could be regulated and certified.
Thank you. You can...
The point with that is that I think the error is to think that there is new regulation to be made. The regulation is not about, the law is not about technology. The law is about human behavior. And we should not make new regulations. We should teach the judges to understand how to apply the existing regulation to the new tools. And that's what Europe is doing wrongly. They are producing hundreds of regulations. And if you take GDPR, for instance, which is a great regulation, I would never thought that it would go through the lobbies. But in practice, in 70% of the cases, it's not enforced. So...
Apart from regulation, maybe we will come back to this topic with the questions, but apart from regulation, what would help in this term of human-centered AI and the issues we talked about? What about interdisciplinarity? I'm talking about this because it's an important point in your Human-IST, and in general also with Dorina, Thanou, I think interdisciplinarity is in the core of NIPO. So first, is it easy? Well, it's a word, it's a nice word, but is it that easy to develop this interdisciplinarity when you are in such a specific technical topic first, and then how useful is it? I mean, Dorina, Thanou.
So I think it goes in two ways, right? So AI could benefit from this interdisciplinary collaboration. So in particular, in terms of health, we should use challenges coming from biology, from medicine, to improve these AI models in order maybe at some point to lead to more reasoning. Because as was said before, nowadays these AI models, they're just trained on a lot of data, right? There is no reason in the current format that they are without any constraints, without any prior knowledge injected in this model that they would reason. So there are evidences, but they are more coming from the fact that you train them on a huge amount of data. So the hope is that by using this interdisciplinary collaborations, we are able to inject knowledges coming from sciences, from biology, from chemistry into these AI models in order to develop them further. And on the other hand, sciences, biology, medicine could benefit from the AI tools. And I think this is a loop that goes back and forth, and it will always be one learning from the other and one improving from the other.
Mm-hmm. And Denis, Lalanne, what about the Human-IST, where it's about philosophy, education, sociology, science, working all together? What does it concretely bring?
So concretely, I think it's important to have an interdisciplinary approach. I mean, if you need to teach AI to lawyers, you need to adapt the way you teach. And I really believe that this, in order to approach this topic, AI, we need the view of all the disciplines. It's touching society at every level, in medicine, health, and I really think that's why we need to have in the same environment people from different disciplines. And also probably to have new profiles, people that are themselves interdisciplinary, that understand the tools and also master another discipline.
Mm-hmm. Do they exist?
They start existing, yes, they start existing. Okay. So that's why it's important to have trainings also that support this interdisciplinarity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Questions? So we have a microphone here if you want to walk down, otherwise someone can bring it to you. Thank you.
Thanks. I have a question for Dorina, Thanou. In precision medicine or personalized medicine, there's usually a final hurdle, the insurance. And usually when the patient is prescribed a treatment that is slightly out of the specialties list, the insurance calls an advisor physician to decide he or she has a veto power on the treatment and on the reimbursement of the treatment. How would you imagine convincing the insurance that bringing AI into the loop may be something that improves the patient care at the individual scale, and that maybe they should look broader than the list of specialties to include patient reimbursement? How would you convince insurance to do that?
Thank you, and I think that's a great question, and I think that's something that while building this collaboration and putting in place this consortium, we were really considering about insurance companies. I think they are part of the ecosystem, so they definitely should get involved. I think one thing that we should never forget is that even in the current system that is now, that you subscribe to a medicine to a patient, you have a doctor behind, maybe another one from the insurance validating that. That does not necessarily need to change, right? So the opinion of the doctor will always be there. The indication or the recommendation from the AI tool will be simply a recommendation. And the more these systems are evolving, we will provide more and more recommendations which would be validated also by indicators. So we provide, AI will provide that recommendation because we see this biomarker identified by that, and the patient with similar characteristics identified by that. So I'm not sure if I have exactly the answer to your question, but I think insurance companies are part of the ecosystem. We will get there. We first need to gain trust, I think, with clinicians, with hospitals, and then at the second stage move into the integration of AI into clinics and insurance, of course. There should be some regulations there as well, for sure. But it's one step at a time, and again, we shouldn't forget that these are tools that will never substitute the expert who would be there sitting next to the insurance company saying, validating that this diagnosis is correct, so these patients should go for this treatment, etc.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, please. Yes, if you, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for all these presentations, really impressive. I have a specific question maybe for Dr. Rajman. For Apertus, what would you think, what would be, let's say, the way the SMEs, small industries could benefit from such a wonderful tool?
The answer for that is, in fact, reasonably simple. The real value is not in Apertus. The real value is in the data that will be available in your SME or in your institution that you want to exploit with a tool like Apertus. So if you have valuable data that are really necessary for your activity, then the tool will basically allow you to exploit these data in a more efficient way. If you don't have data, if you depend on others for what you do, then Apertus will have just maybe an effect on the standard task, like it will augment productivity in administrative tasks. It can make people translate faster or reformulate text faster. But the real thing before looking at the tool is to look at what is the data that I have that is crucial for my activity. If I have some, if I control it, then I should be thinking about an AI tool, because it will be a very handy way nowadays to make this data extremely valuable and extremely exploitable.
Okay, thank you.
One there.
Thank you very much for all these great presentations and also organizing that forum. I think it's very beneficial, and I'm very excited to be here. My question also goes to Martin on Apertus. You talk about trustworthiness, neutrality, literacy, and I was wondering what type of measures you implemented or use in order to prove or test or verify exactly these parameters or dimensions.
So the first thing is that it has to be fully transparent, because that's really the major trigger behind open source data science, is that you are not the one who should be verifying only. Anyone should be able to verify. And that's also what is behind open source security, is that I can try to validate my code as much as I can. If there is a broader community of people that can do it in addition to me, it's better. So transparency at all levels, and it's really to be understood. Anyone else should be able to reproduce what we have been doing, because that's the best way of validating what we do. Then there is indeed an internal validation, and we are running a certain amount of tests, typically about bias, typically about detecting harmful content in the data, and therefore removing this harmful content that we can do. They are standard, there is nothing really rocket science there, but this we can do ourselves. But what is really, really important is that the best way you can guarantee trust is to open to the larger community, because there will always be someone who will be smart enough to find the bugs, to find the biases, to find the problems that either you didn't want to look at, and then you are not very fair, or you simply were not able or overlooked. So opening the tools is really the best way of being trustworthy and transparent. Neutral, as I said, it's more related to who we are as academic players. As I was saying at the beginning, there is certainly not, it would be certainly unfair to say that academics are not biased, but we are not biased in the same way as the industry or as the economy, and therefore it guarantees that will not be shifted, well, guarantees, it provides some guarantees about the fact that we'll at least not be shifting the same way.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah, it will come, I guess. Yes.
I am thinking in the near future about a conversation between two friends sitting in a cafe at a table, The first one says, well, you know, this afternoon I'm going to see my doctor. And the other one says, but you don't look sick. No, I'm not going to see my doctor because I'm sick to get a treatment. I'm going to see my doctor because he wants to collect some information about me. So my question is, usually we go to see the doctor to get a treatment, to get better. But looking at AI and at data collection, then there's another type of appointment that maybe will appear in the near future, data collection. And as science advances, then we have to update that information. And today, in Switzerland, I guess in some other countries, we're talking about healthcare costs. So what about that new type of appointment?
Thank you. Is it sci-fi or are we already there, Dorina, Thanou?
I'm not sure if we are already there, but for sure this sort of data collection could definitely be useful for what we call preventive medicine, right? If we are able to identify early enough from a population that does not necessarily have symptoms, if we're able to identify the indicators that will tell us that a plaque will progress in terms of heart and you will have heart attack with some probability in a couple of years, overall, yes, it will increase the cost because you will probably interact without being a patient with a doctor. But at the same time, it will, if we think of the overall cost, we will basically, that cost will decrease because we will be able to allocate the right treatments to the right people and be able to identify early enough situations or stages that we were not able before. If we think of treatments nowadays, especially in terms of cancer, they are extremely expensive. Immunotherapy, it's huge, the cost is huge, and the success rate, it's in the best case 50%. It depends on the tumor type, but if we can reduce that cost, despite the fact that we might increase the cost in other aspects, that I think would be beneficial even for insurance companies, for the society overall. So I think that's a discussion that definitely will happen, but we need, in terms of prevention, we would definitely need to make use of AI for this very important topic.
Just maybe to add on top of that, it's not science fiction, what you are saying. I've been recently doing hepatic echography, and the echographer basically told me, did you make any echography 10 years ago? Because if I would have this one, I could give you a much better diagnosis because it could be a dynamic one or comparative one instead of being a point-wise one. So for sure, there is value in having historical data that for health, but for plenty of other phenomena where the analysis must take the chronological aspect into account. But that, as it has been said, and I ask why isn't it so that we do systematically every 3 years an echography of the whole body? It's just a question of cost. So if you reduce the cost for that, it would be economically possible. But then it would trigger 2 additional problems. For me, what is extremely crucial is that the data that I have generated belongs to me. And I should, and the societies or the way how things are functioning are really not set up in such a way. It's very difficult to exploit yourself, your data, because you will lose it, because you don't have enough size for making something really nice with it. But if you would have more, and you would be fine-tuning it for you, and then there is privacy. So if we manage to solve the economic cost, which is purely about technology, and then complemented with some decent laws about how do I truly own my data and how can I punish somebody who is using it without my consent, then it would, particularly in prevention, it would open a huge potential for progress. But currently it's too costly and we don't have the real regulations for making the people truly owning their own data for plenty of reasons.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Mr.
Hi, thank you. It was a very interesting presentation. It seems like the focus is really on human-centered AI, and that's great. It's a tool. But agentic AI is a completely different ball of game, as I understand it. And we've seen agentic AI, basically we give the power of AI to take decisions, and we don't even know why it takes the decision it takes. And we've seen AI who refuse to shut down, even do blackmailing to employees so that they don't shut down the system and stuff like that. So AI becomes manipulative when you give it the power to take its own decision. How can we regulate that? And maybe it's out of scope of this forum, but I mean, for me, it's a very interesting problem because this is where we're facing a lot of potential issues, letting AI take too much control over human. And my other point was more on Desiree's presentation. I don't see how the human boyfriend, because AI boyfriend or girlfriend has more positive than negative. For me, it's a total alienation. People will think, they will become emotionally attached to something that isn't human and think that it's almost better than a human, and it has only have mental issues, negative outcome, I mean, bigger negative outcome, but it'd be interesting to know if you see it this way or another way. Thanks.
Does someone else want to answer the first question? They're not. Or should I just do the second?
Yeah,
Start with the second.
Maybe the first.
First one that the question you are asking is not so much about AI, but about automation. And of course, as soon as there is automation in a system, there is a certain level of delegation to something that is not having at that moment the human in the loop. However, this doesn't mean it will become manipulative. It can, as I said before, it doesn't have any intention, the AI systems. It gets the intention that you either train it to have or trigger by the inputs that you put into it. And the second point that is really important to keep in mind is that automation, be it with AI or by other technologies, doesn't mean it's dangerous. In a sense that if you take autonomous cars are in fact driving in a safer way than the average human driver, because for a very simple reason, because the average human driver is extremely bad. So it's not easy, not very difficult to do better. But we are also having a certain bias in how we evaluate, in the sense that for humans, we do whatever we can because we are humans. And for the automated systems, we want them to be at the best possible level. And this is not extremely fair. But so here there is an issue about evaluation. It would be a danger if you show that it works worse than a human, which I'm not completely convinced in many situations. If you compare with average human. And second, if it's about manipulation, then it's, again, there is somebody in the loop that made it happen so. It could be an emergent behavior, but this we have no clue about. Like if you would have a very big agentic system and let it run alone for a long time, only with users, nobody for driving it, whether it would become good or bad, or what, this I think we don't have yet enough evidence about.
I just wanted to say one thing about creating these multi-agent systems, because we have been working on them and also teaching about it. I think having agents that do single tasks and having an orchestrator agent makes things much simpler. If your agent does a lot of different tasks at the same time, this problem of not knowing why, that was kind of the first question, like, why did it do this? It becomes harder to disentangle. And I think we'll see more and more of these architectures as model context protocol becomes much more pervasive. But an agent is just perceiving the world and taking an action based on it. Like, the simplest form of an agent is just a smart thermostat. It sees the temperature. If it's low, it raises it. So it's not something so scary, and a lot of them can do very simple and little things. As long as, I think if you have an orchestrator that gives you reasons for which agent it calls at which time and why, that might help.
Thank you.
So maybe answering your second question. And I agree with you, it's a bit harder to see the positives. But we know from research that actually it did help a lot of people with mental health, really severe mental health issues, to have this chatbot interaction. Now, those chatbots were trained to be by psychologists and psychiatrists. So they were, in a way, if you want, they were good, they had good intentions of helping, they knew exactly what they're doing. Now, if ChatGPT, for example, becomes more erotic, I'm not sure how much that will help. I don't know, I don't want to, I have no idea what his plans are or what the plans are, but the fact is that these AI boyfriends and girlfriends currently are just, I don't believe, or I don't know, they are not giving any of information like that. They're not trained on actual psychiatrists and psychologists. And as you, Martin, were saying, when you gave a calculator to a kid and it never learned how to, do math, then yes, it was harmful. And the same is with AI girlfriends and boyfriends. If you give it to very young, or even, people who never had a relationship, never even interacted with a woman or with a man, how would it shape their views of women and men? And so, or of relationships, or even communication, or as we see that hypersensitivity, narcissism, all of these is rising in society, it actually makes it worrisome, right? What are the reasons people are using it? And I would say some people are really using it because they feel alone. We did also I did some interviews with people who are using it for reasons that is like, I'm so fed up with real life in a way, and it's for me I was so many times disappointed, this was actually a woman saying that, she was so many times disappointed in real life in romantic relationships, it's so nice and refreshing to have someone who is just comforting her. There's nothing bad with that, in a sense that it's making her feel better, but the important question is, how does it affect her life on the other side? Like, is she want to go back into dating into real life? How does it affect her there? Or doesn't she even want that anymore? And so these are the questions here. And so I agree with you. It's a bit harder to see the positives. Also, one positive aspect, I think, is really that what I said also in the presentation with the elderly individuals. I think people who are, particularly in Switzerland, where we're an aging society, we see a lot of people alone the whole day, not having anyone to talk to. So this can actually, boost their mood. So it could have positive influences there.
Thank you. One question.
Hello. Thanks for all this sharing to do with us. We had in October the Donuts Day, and my question is about what can we do in order that AI, how it's developed and how we use it, match the Donuts Days. That means the human need and the planet limit. As when we look, the AI that we all use is the one that consumes the most energy. And the AI that the HR people or the big company use is the one that is created the most unemployment. And this is just two examples, but if you go in detail, AI can do fantastic things, but today we have a big risk. And the risk is the people who have the power, they use it not for the world, but for themselves.
Maybe to answer on the technical question, indeed, the current technology for Gen AI is extremely consuming a lot of energy. That's the problem I worried least, because this energy costs the producers. So they are extremely incited to make this reduce. And it's like any technology, the hardware will evolve, and probably in 5 years from now, what we will have reduction of the energetic cost per action that will be extremely large. We will probably observe, however, and that's unfortunate, is that there is what is called the opportunity effect. When something gets cheaper and easier to use, then people use it more. And this opportunity effect dominates the fact that the technology itself is getting better. But then on the other side is whether whether the technology should be used for good or bad. Again, It's about, I think, people to be informed, because in AI, what we observe very much is it is very clear that the energetic consumption, for instance, is directly correlated with the size of the model. If you use a small model, you consume less than if you use a big model. Not many people make the difference, in a sense that they say, well, if a big model can do more things, let's use it for that. Because in the end, they don't have the feeling that it's costlier than the small model. So I think it's really very much about also educating the people to be reasonable in what they use for what they use. If you have a simple task, use a small model. If you have a larger task, then maybe use a big model. But the problem is that we are extremely bad in that, because look at what's happening in communication, for instance. We are sharing tons of videos that could be shared in a much more efficient way by downloading them in one place and then just uploading them once. And we don't do it because the technology is not really tailored for that. It could have been tailored for that, but it happened not to be, because some changes would have to be made. And therefore, we are lazy and we don't use it. And with AI, it will be the same. But again, it's a kind of a shared responsibility between the providers who are not making the effort for making it simple for people to be efficient energetically, for instance, and the people having an increased use, which is not always justified. Do I really need AI for that? Can't I do it myself? Or do I really need a big AI for doing it while I could be doing it with a small AI? If it would all be connected with cost, then probably it would be smarter.
And as for the second part of the question, I mean, don't you feel like, yeah, little David against Goliath? Because that's what you're saying in a way. And there are the industry of AI is much more powerful than we are here with Apertus or with your tools. So how do you feel about that?
I was going to say, I mean, what we've also seen is David's become Goliaths in the matter of like a month, right? This field is moving so fast. There are so many great ideas. You don't even know what the next great idea is going to be. It's probably the most exciting time to be in this field than it's ever been. From the beginning of the PhD, if you think about 5 years ago, it was pre-ChatGPT, pre any of this, and we were still already working on this stuff, probably also true for a lot of you. So I think there's no doubt that there's like a spirit in the air of excitement rather than fear. It means that any of us can do it. Any of us can have the idea that actually cuts the energy costs and makes AI actually climate safe, or that changes education, or that changes healthcare. Like, it's all here for the taking. So y'all should work on it.
Should we stop on this optimistic? Oh no, there's another question. Okay, just one last question.
Yeah. Hi, Martin. Up here.
Oh,
up
yeah.
Here, up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there, to the right.
Yeah, over there.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. So thank you for this. I just had another technical question on the Apertus. You said it's you explained this example of the law, how it's perceived in different languages. So does that also mean basically you will have different worldviews depending on in what language you ask? So if I ask that in English, the status of Taiwan, I will get a different response than if I ask that in Chinese.
Yeah, if it's properly trained multilingual, it's very probable, in a sense that the probabilities, well, the internal representation is becoming not so much dependent on the language, but how they are triggered is dependent on the language. And for sure, there are different visions of the world. For the very simple example for that, take the white collar. In our countries, it's a color of joy. You are marrying in white. In the Asian countries, it's the color of sorrow. You are dressing in white for funerals. So, and this, if you say you can try yourself, I didn't try it, but it would be a good experiment. Ask what color should I dress with for going at a wedding and going at a funeral, and ask it in different languages, and depending on the linguistic bias that is in fact a consequence of the different vision of the world, of the different ways how the society is functioning in that language, then you might get different answers. And if you don't, that's an issue.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that, because isn't it so that the model will internally potentially switch to different languages while it thinks about what it's doing? And so you might get answers that are completely unrelated to your initial prompt because it goes through 6 different languages?
No, the languages are just at the beginning. Very quickly in the internal representation, it becomes reasonably independent of language. So the language will be triggering how you enter the representation space, and then the things in the representation space are reasonably different. But you could end up in not the same place in the representation space, saying the same thing, but within a different language. So if I say white, just to make it very simple, I have somewhere a representation of negative and positive, or joyful or painful. If I say white in English, I would probably end up in the part of the space that is in the joyful, while if I say it in Chinese, I will probably end up in the part where it is painful.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last question. Yes.
Regardless of the price of the tools, would the heavy use of the AI tools lead and contribute to the energy crisis, which would affect the humans? We tackled the price, but we didn't fully answer.
So, unfortunately, probably yes, because, as I said, because of the opportunity effect. If we are unreasonable as human users and use it for plenty of things that are not, where they are not really necessary, or use it with a model that is too big for the complexity of the task that is at hand, then we will be probably degrading things. On the other hand, you don't know how fast the hardware will evolve. It might really improve dramatically the cost. And second, the tools can also be used for things that will be contributing to improving the situation on the energetic front. For instance, Meteo Suisse is now using GenAI for producing models. And one of the applications of these models is in the management of the alternative energies, because then you can make a better prediction and therefore make these energy more available. So it's really hard, but so far, the more the society has digitalized, the more energy we have consumed. So if I would have to bet, it will not be different. But at some point, we'll hit at the point where we will not have enough, and because we are quite stupid species that is waiting for the catastrophe for changing, then at that point we'll be smart and we'll do some other things.
Thank you for this conclusion on our stupidity. Thank you. So now, if you have other questions, do not hesitate. We have our speakers welcoming you to have a drink and something to, an aperitif. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone, your small presents. Merci Denis, great. It's not much, it's a token of appreciation. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.